Arc 5, Chapter 68. Name-Eating Gourmet. The ruthless skirmish which had broken out in the Watergate city of Pristella against the witch cult was, at last, approaching its finale. In the east of the city stood a single church covered in ice, where stabbing pillars of ice, tall enough to make one raise their eyes, had been erected. In the north of the city, the waterways flared up at once, and the incandescent stone monument roared up and crumbled down. In the west of the city, a part of the waterway got destroyed, and the water, flowing into the underground, caused flooding. In the core of the city, the nucleus of the city's facilities, the city hall lost its foundation, and subsequently lost its shape. The opening up of hostilities caused severe damage in various areas, and etched the menace of the existence known as the witch cult into the very fibre of the city. However, there were those who resisted and repelled away the menace, fighting a defensive battle with their limited fighting force, and tried to fulfill their purpose. And amidst the fight for the Watergate city, if there was a battlefield to be named where things were not proceeding favourably, which one would it be? That could perhaps be said for this battlefield. Yes, breaking out unanticipated and unforeseen, was the face-off and battle with the Sin Archbishop of the witch cult representing gluttony, Le Baton Kaitos.
That one too! What went wrong with you? What do you want to do? What are you going to do? What happened to you?
This place was commonly known as the Waterway Street, surrounded by slender and convoluted waterways. In the open plaza of the Waterway Street was a single petite phantom laughing loudly and jumping about quickly and keenly. Using his short limbs and waving about his long dark brown hair was a young boy. The boy, in his mid-teens, had put on only pieces of rags on his body, such that it would not be strange to confuse him with a vagrant child at sight. However, it could not be said that it was not difficult to dismiss his outward appearance as just a trait of his, but instead, that impression carried on to his true self as well. On top of that, the very existence of the loudly laughing boy was heterogeneous, distorted, and abominable. At a single glance, the sense of oppressive pressure that his entire body exerted could be understood. It was the fatal insanity that called upon parts of instinct which had been chipped off and neglected in normal daily life by humans. By just that, everyone carefully observed the abnormality of his existence. He was a blasphemer who trampled upon the human realm, human wishes, and the human society. He was a Sin Archbishop of the witch cult, the great evil who trampled the human heart and humanity itself.
The opponent is just one child. Surround him and don't let him escape. Bring him down!
Yeah, he's just some lone brat. Catch him and dice him up.
The commanding, loud voice overlapped with the infuriating laughter of the youth. While glaring at the men approaching him, Le Baton Kaitos of Gluttony stepped ahead and shortened the distance rather lightheartedly, instead of stepping down. Putting a halt to their words, the white-robed men leapt upon Baton Kaitos. Each one of the white-robed men were mercenaries of the organization Scales of the White Dragon, which had been left behind by Kiritaka. Holding short swords in their hands, they struck Gluttony with their blades from all directions. Against this synchronous offensive, which had no disorderous cooperation, Baton Kaitos.
There are some frayed spots! That won't do!
Sliding into the gap of the perfectly ordered attack, he evaded four of the swords with minimal movement. Positioning his body away and dodging the blades, he slashed one blade down using the dagger tied up to his right arm. and kicking one person's torso, he broke through the enclosure. In front of him was standing someone with a huge figure, with his arms crossed.
Oh, such desperation, huh? You?
He was Felt's attendant, Gaston. Having robbed away one of the Sin Archbishop's daggers using his secret technique, he now, with his physique, dashed towards Baton Kaitos and tried to slam into him. Seeing him, Baton Kaitos rounded his eyes and smiled shortly afterwards. It was a smile befitting his age. However, the sharp canines in his mouth induced uneasiness and anxiety.
It seems you're doing well, Uncle. Not so bad.
I've still not reached an age to be called an uncle, boy.
Baton Kaitos jumped, and his right leg thrust into the side of Gaston's face, who had come plunging into him. Receiving the blow on his cheek, Gaston flinched, and gave a hateful look to Baton Kaitos. Just like the blow of the dagger, this attack did not pierce through Gaston either. Though the principle was ambiguous, Gaston's body had been completely killing off the impacts of the attacks. At the same pace, Gaston stretched his arms, grabbing the continuously moving gluttony.
Palm of the Fist King!
Keeping his legs raised, Baton Kaitos muttered something. His palm came into contact with Gaston's torso. Compared to a kick, it had no might or velocity. It was a mere action of touching. However, the moment he lightly pushed in his arms, Gaston's body curled and broke down. Kneeling down, Gaston vomited out gastrointestinal fluids. Walking by the side of the body who had broken down in front of him, Baton Kaitos, who had broken through the enclosure, turned back and tilted his neck. "That's all you've got," was what his gesture suggested. And the scales of the white dragon could not hide their severe expression seeing their pride get damaged.
You monster!
The word that had leaked out of someone's mouth was the clear proof of Baton Kaitos' ability. The agonizing voice might have had dim jealousy mixed into it, or had been simply misheard.
We have much lower chances of being able to strike a decisive blow than what I'd earlier conjectured.
Observing the battlefield, which could not be called a competition even when painted under favorable light, Otto licked his dry lips and desperately rotated his head. In the face-off against gluttony, their fighting strength in a direct confrontation with the enemy was in no way dependable. Of course, it was true that all of them were risking their lives, but it was also a fact that it was still lacking. Those of the scales of the white dragon left behind by Kuretaka amounted to 7 people, coupled with the duo of Felt and Gaston, her escort, as well as the solitary force that was Otto, made for a total of 10 people. If someone who had wrapped up their battle on an early note were to join up with them here, then that would make for a great turn at the tables. That would be absolutely ideal. But
I don't trust my luck enough to be expecting such good fortune to shower upon me.
the life of Otto Swen went hand in hand with hardship and unfairness. Otto believed that nothing known as good fortune existed, and results could be derived only through one's own hard work, preparation, and actions. Fortunately for him, he had a nuisance of a divine protection and was born into an understanding home. Then having his life saved by Subaru, who had killed a Sin Archbishop. As he believed he already ran out of it, he did not get unnecessarily negative regarding his bad luck.
That water dragon brought by Nichan can't be used anymore, right?
Standing beside Otto, who was sunken in his own thoughts, called out Felt, who was also watching the same situation. What her crimson eyes were glaring at was at the side opposite of the sword-fighting gluttony and the others, lying abandoned on the stone pavement, with its long neck twitching, was the form of a dying water dragon. The pitiable water dragon, who had been summoned by Otto, but trashed away by Baton Kaitos. Unfortunately, were unlikely to return to the front lines.
Sadly, I don't think they can be pushed any further. These were all the water dragons I'd spoken to before coming here. I could speak to other water dragons and have them do the same thing, but would you rather use them to escape instead?
And that joke hurt. Just that songstress maniac escaping is fine. And our trump card isn't just one, they're two. The second one is, well, I'm preparing it.
Saying that, Felt glanced at the long and slender package her petite body was grasping. Wrapped in a white cloth, her trump card seemed to be the magic weapon her attendant had brought. She had stated that even Reinhard could not evade it, but a burdensome mechanism was required for its usage, and until that was fulfilled, it could not be put to use.
On top of that songstress maniac aside, neither Nichan nor I can escape, even if we tried to, because it seems that bastard is targeting us.
If I may be honest, that's the thing I want to be excused from the most.
Otto dejectedly lowered his shoulders at the words of Felt, who inhaled with her nose. But he was unable to deny her words, because he was able to sense the strength of the warm looks being directed at them, even amidst the fierce battling. Baten Kaito sleeked out warm sighs, with moist eyes and blushing cheeks, and frequently turned towards Otto. Though it was a gaze with the colour suggesting a desire to harvest, but the true meaning behind it was only the lurking appetite of a hungry, ferocious beast. As per the taste of the beast of prey, drops of blood had realized into top-class flesh was all there was to it. Though it was not honouring in the least, 3 people here were suitable in the aesthetic appreciating eyes of Baten Kaitos. Otto and Felt, along with a man with an unkempt beard, who was leading the scales of the White Dragon. Giving orders to his men, he had repeatedly clashed with Baten Kaitos, and quickly returned back to his position here. The man, with a serious face, jumped out of battle and gave thought to the fight's circumstances, all while taking swift steps around.
Dynas, it's thanks to him that our young master's escape was successful.
Being successful in that is Felt's group's achievement, and on top of that, having Kiritaka escape was also to aid us toward victory. With this,
if Kiritaka, who had escaped from this place, was to move according to Otto's instructions, a different possibility would arise. Unfortunately, though it was something more like a prayer and had no proof. In any case, it should not go unfavorably. Having more ways to win, to reach victory, could never be something negative. Once any of those ways were put to use, what was left was to simply wait for how it turned out. Seeing Otto, quiet and shaking his head, the man, Dynas, made an astonished expression, but then changed it. It was the color of being convinced.
I see. It seems like it's just how I had heard. As expected of the Internal Affairs Minister of Emilia Sama's faction who had sent one of the witch cult's higher-ups to their death. It seems I can expect you to have your own dish for the Sin Archbishop to taste as well.
thank you for such an inflated evaluation. I'm sorry. By the way, everyone, do you happen to know what kind of work the Internal Affairs Minister is supposed to do? I believe it's just somewhat different from what I'm doing right now.
Such politeness too, huh? Also, our own Internal Affairs officials are going around visiting shelters and taking care of the victims. Isn't that kind of work Internal Affairs officials are supposed to do?
The damage he had done to the image of Internal Affairs officials was immense. In the past 1 year, he had decided to give up on being branded an Internal Affairs official, but he had never come to terms with the changes that would result due to that. Whose fault was it? Was it perhaps because such situations, like natural disasters, kept repeating? Nah, it was Subaru's fault. Once he returned safe, he would definitely set things straight. That was what he had decided.
Well then,
Let's put things of post-battle for later, and focus on the current situation. Ahead of Otto's sight, Baden Kaidos repeatedly intermingled with the scales of the White Dragon and Gaston, and making clear his extraordinary combat strength, he was defeating them. However, what was utmost perplexing was that he was not even trying to swing his right arm's dagger.
Even though such nice adults are ganging up, you can't even catch a single brat! That won't do! That wouldn't do! Will that do? Can that do? That could never do!
Unraveling his fangs, Baden Kaitos dodged the men with just the handling of his feet. His free-paced motion, with strikingly swaying movements of the upper body, caused the swords to eventually cut through the sky. The movements of his upper and lower body were totally different, as if two separate systems entirely. As that eccentricity reflected in Otto's eyes, Dynas unintentionally gulped down his threat.
Dynas?
No. Sorry. His movements are just a bit... Oh?
Don't you get scared with such a huge figure.
With his mouth shut, Dynas tried to deny the thoughts that were coming up in his mind. Standing behind him, Felt gave him a kick to his back. Dynas turned back, and Felt, who puffed up and reddened her cheeks, raised up her eyes at him.
Once you put your hands in others' pockets, all that's left to do is choose what to take and what to leave. If you'll be chased after either way, then it's better to just use whatever you got. You get it?
Why are you using the point of view of a thief?
Otto tilted his head at Felt's advice, while Dynas, who was right next to him, shook his head. He initiated his words by saying, "I guess so," and looked back at Felt.
It's just how the young miss said. You just have to say whatever comes up in your mind and find a lead out of it. For the moment, what I feel is just that all of this is just odd, but...
Miss, which was how Dynas referred to Felt as. It seemed as if he had not noticed her being a royal candidate. But, though he judged the mistake here, Otto decided not to mention it. Subsequently, he carefully listened to Dynas's words.
That Sin Archbishop. He may just look like a brat, but his fighting is good. His movements are good. He has too much expertise, frankly. Leaving it to just our physical abilities would, again, still not be the correct answer.
Isn't that like being born with good fighting skills? Reinhard's one such idiot, no?
I would like to simply give up if he's even comparable to Reinhard.
Felt's knight, the kingdom's strongest sword, Reinhard. Currently, he was accompanying Subaru and was supposed to be clashing against Greed. But his power was something Otto, who was only on the level of being capable of self-defense, had only felt upon his skin. Just being beside him could make one feel a sense of absolute safety and amazement at the same time. Kingdom's strongest was no understatement. In fact, it would not be wrong to call him the world's strongest. On the other hand, a strong sense of revulsion and an unnerving feeling boiled up by simply coming in contact with Baden Kaitos. It was unlike from what could be sensed from Reinhard. Of course, his unnatural fighting strength was unquestionably undeniable.
It's not like that either. I've lived enough and faced enough battles to say, that brat's fighting technique can't be explained by just talent. His movements are that of someone who stacked them up for years and years.
At Dynas's words, Otto and Felt glanced at Baden Kaitos once again. At just that moment, Baden Kaitos had received the short sword's attack with his arm. Gripping the wrist of the one holding the sword, Baden Kaitos gyrated his body, and turning him upside down, he threw his body to the ground. Furthermore, as the men commenced their pursuit, Gluttony's feet glided on the cobblestone, drawing a circle, and freely using his limbs, he destroyed their balance and made them fall. Unquestionably, the fluent and elegant movement had the power to draw a line between being refreshing and the violent ambience Baden Kaitos wore. His undeniable art of having a system of a variety of martial arts had been cultivated into himself. The young boy, who looked 14, had perfected such techniques which would take years and years to master.
I suppose someone called a martial arts genius may be able to do this, but I don't want to think that such a brat was blessed with that talent.
Baden Kaidos' mastery was such that Dynas had to say that much. At that moment, Otto realized what the jealousy in the leaked words of one of the white-robed men who were fighting gluttony meant. They, who were fighting the battle, had realized this truth before Otto and the rest. That was why they were
Dagger handling? Unarmed fighting skills? Perfect martial arts techniques?
saying that. Otto resumed to doubt the reasoning behind it once again.
Is that even possible?
Was the only thought that came up in his mind. He had heard of people being sent to the Colosseum at a very young age, and the ones who became swordsmen were taught and trained fighting techniques in the Wallachian Empire to the south. If Baden Kaidos was to be in such an environment, it may not have been impossible for him to capture such skills at this age. But those skills and fighting techniques would again be different. The only way for him to learn and cultivate those would be to train under an equally and appropriately apt trainer. Otherwise,
To steal it away? No, to eat it like food?
Otto had already heard Subaru mention that gluttony was an existence who ate the name and memories of its opponents. The truth was, Otto had the knowledge of the form of a young girl who had both of those eaten, and had gone into a state of not being present in anyone's memories. It was hard to believe, but he surely did not eat something which was visible to the eyes. However, till now, what would happen to that which got eaten was a thought that did not dawn upon him. Possibly, gluttony had been storing the eaten memories of his opponents and using them. The technique of a martial artist who had trained for over 10 years, or the fighting skills of a warrior well acquainted with the battlefield, or even emulating the attack of a young girl who had been by Subaru's side and supporting him.
He's using magic!
Gaston!
As the shocking attack commenced, Otto's shout and Baden Kaidos' chant echoed at the same time. A sound resonated in the area as the air crystallized, and the icicles subsequently produced, swiftly moving, aimed for the startled scales of the white dragon. However, against the rain of ice, Gaston stood firm, with his arms spread. The giant, with his natural defense, smashed all of the ice that came in contact with him with his body. Against the destruction, the scales of the white dragon dove behind his back, in order to reduce the impairment being inflicted upon them. However, they were still unable to prevent damage.
Oh, Nissan's judgment was good. It seems it couldn't have become any more of a surprise attack than we had thought.
Watching the torment, Baden Kaidos, who was behind the magic, raised the edge of his mouth. Gaston, who had acted as a firm wall, sighed out a hoarse exhale, and the 6 of the scales of the white dragon behind his back lay injured, 1 bleeding heavily, and 2 crouching, who had been wounded on their legs. The other 3 could not be described as uninjured either. Their war potential had been halved, and on top of that...
You saying that means? Could it be that our trick has become clear?
Well, I wonder.
Oh, Nissan, we won't be fooled! Before suffering and pain, can't you stop acting like a merchant?
Responding to Otto, and threatening to make him suffer, Baden Kaidos' form disappeared the next instant. No, he had dashed with his swift natural movements, fast enough to make one think he had disappeared. His petty frame glided by Gaston, onto the side of the immobile scales of the white dragon. In the blink of an eye, the mobile tree flew away from the spot, but the wounded tree were unable to flee.
Asta, look, felt, Hicks.
Leaking out a whisper, Baden Kaidos softly caressed the shoulders of the tree, in front of everyone observing with widened eyes, wondering what he was doing. The bodies of the tree jumped, once they had been touched by Baton Kaitos. And Baton Kaitos turned back and raised his left hand. And he licked his empty left palm. At his action, Otto was immediately swallowed by discomfort. What had happened? Something had unquestionably happened. However, he was unaware of what had happened. And that was not all he was unaware of.
The ones who are lying at his feet. Who are they?
What Otto's fingers were pointing at were at the feet of Baton Kaitos, who had his lengthy tongue stretched out. At the feet of the malice which had taken the form of the young boy lay the figures of 3 people. Though they were lying there, their identities were unknown. Possibly, based on their clothing, they could be members of the Scales of the White Dragon. But when did they appear? And when did they get defeated?
Sad? How sad? So sad! Quite sad, pretty sad, because it is sad! Even if our reunion turns only unilateral, we can't help but want satisfaction!
Dynas? Who are those 3?
I don't know. I haven't even seen them before. But
Even if they were told that the ones wearing the same clothes were unknown allies, it would still not be convincing. Even so, neither did Dynas' voice have any deceit, nor did it have any composure. Charging ahead as if flying, he raised the short swords in both of his hands, and slashed into Baton Kaitos.
Stop it, Dynas! It's an old relationship! Only one step left for our hometown's purification! So crossing swords with comrades like this is foolish!
you, from where did you? About that!
Carelessly trampling upon Dynas' circumstances, Baton Kaitos raised the edge of his right dagger, lightening the blow of the 2 short swords with his blade. Gluttony struck Dynas' chest with his knees, and at the same pace, he leapt backwards due to the resulting force. Dynas coughed as he gripped to his chest, but managed to retrieve the collapsed 3 strangers. Seeing Dynas in that shape, Baton Kaitos let out a sigh.
Don't stubbornly stick to the vessels! What's important is the heart inside, no? What lets a person be the person isn't the outside, but the inside. We know about your hard work, Dynas. It wasn't your fault you couldn't protect Million and Melee. Your luck was bad.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! What do you know about me? Stop saying things per your own wishes! You rotten demon!
Raising an enraged voice and forgetting to damage his pain, Dynas charged at the enemy again. He angled his 2 short swords and aimed for Baton Kaitos' face. But making a face as if he was acquainted with the attack, Baton Kaitos dodged it with ease. At the same pace, Baton Kaitos stretched his hand for Dynas' back.
Wow!
How long will you be ignoring us?
That's what we're saying, you idiot.
Gaston aimed directly for Baton Kaitos' slim waist from behind. Baton Kaitos' elbow trashed into his nose, but Gaston did not fall back because of the hit's impact. Furthermore, while Gaston stalled Baton Kaitos, Felt jumped in. She crashed her long and slim package, which she had gripped in her hands, into the suspectable back of his head.
Idiot, huh? How hurtful! Perhaps we actually know more than you do, you know?
But Baton Kaitos bent forward at Felt's attack, and then subsequently received it with his right arm's dagger by raising it. The vigorous strike gave rise to a crushing sound. However, its aim mostly missed, and Felt's stance came to be unguarded. Seeing Felt and Dynas together, his hands could also reach Gaston. So Baden Kaitos' devilish hand, at the same pace, touched the tree.
I won't let you, though!
Just when he was about to reach, the cast red-hot magic stone reached Baden Kaitos' feet. The moment he saw that, Baden Kaitos' movement stopped, and Felt and Dynas withdrew with urgency.
Don't let go, Gaston!
I won't forget this, you wicked girl!
Gaston, standing firm, was unable to escape from Baden Kaitos, and was caught up in the magic stone's range. As the magic stone's glowing intensified, and in the next instant it gave rise to an explosion powerful enough to tear off the stone pavement. Red and white light illuminated, and Felt rolled away from the explosion to the other side. Otto somehow grabbed her, and then glanced at the explosion's span. These magic stones were what Otto constantly carried just in case. Ever since the fight with Garfield in Sanctuary, he had determined it would be better to do so for his own safety. It might be a means painful on his wallet, but its strength was nothing to laugh at.
Is your companion alright?
Ha! Don't underestimate my giant. He's my armor. He won't be hurt by a meager and soft attack. But...
Just when she said that much, a giant figure emerged out of the smoke. It was Gaston, with his body having taken a sooty color. He smacked his body, making a desperate face.
Hot, 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 I'll die!
Even if you may be able to take explosions, I guess you can't stop your body from warming or cooling.
Felt sighed, seeing the form of her attendant agonizing in high fever. Though he had bathed in the might of the fire magic stone from close proximity, Gaston's life did not appear to be in a serious condition. Confirming that much, Otto turned his eyes back towards the smoke. The black fumes were rising at a reasonably good scale, so there was no way Baden Kaitos, who was at its heart, had managed to defend himself. On the other side of the black smoke was Dynas, knelt down, but he seemed to be safe. And...
Bennett! Calcips! August!
A whisper was heard, and all eyes turned away from the hypocenter. There were visible the forms of three collapsed with clothes, and Baden Kaitos in perfectly good health. The Ute once again raised his left hand's palm, saying, "Lick," and inched it closer to his mouth and licked it. What followed was beyond understanding. Once again, 3 more unidentified, white-robed people appeared. The way he had escaped from the hypocenter, and the unanticipated appearance of 3 more victims. All of it was beyond comprehension.
Shit! What's with them? From where? No. When?
Standing beside Otto, Felt violently scratched her beautiful blonde hair. She also, once again, was beginning to lose understanding of what was the meaning of what she was seeing. What must be considered urgent, even that was something Felt right now did not know. However, Otto understood. This mysterious state.
This is what it means when the name is eaten.
Disappearing from everyone's memory, and bowed only within Subaru and no one else, was a young girl named Rem. The very same phenomenon was transpiring in front of his eyes right now. Possibly the collapsed men, who were supposedly members of the Scales of the White Dragon, had gotten their names eaten by Baden Kaitos. The result of that was the disappearance of the memories of them being present from the minds of Otto and the others. That was why it looked as if they had appeared suddenly, and they did not know who they were either. Fright rose within him. Once again, he comprehended the viciousness of the monster in front of his eyes. If he straddled into the hands of gluttony, lay Baden Kaitos, or in the worst case scenario, if Otto and the others were to face complete annihilation here, all traces of this battle, along with the existing evidence, will all disappear. Of course, all memories of the resistance put up by them, and the fact that they were here itself as well. The possibility of oneself disappearing, and the disappearance of all people who would look back upon oneself. In other words, was that not the greatest fear in this world? far greater than any other fears. Otto turned pallid, even though they had not reached the same conclusion. Felt and Dynas' face complexions were equally bad. He realized how ignorant they had been, and how reckless they were acting. It made him believe that the real choice here was to escape caring for themselves or not.
Damn it, he pisses me off. Should we try the same way? One more time?
Otto sighed weakly while Felt leaked out those words. Without thinking, Otto turned his eyes towards her face. Felt's complexion was that of utter stupefaction in front of the aberrant situation. However, she was not lamenting, as if continuing to strengthen her heart until she was completely driven into a corner. Feeling moisture upon his entire body, Otto slapped his cheeks. Just what was he doing by becoming such a weakling? Even if he went bankrupt, he would not name it as defeat until he was kicked out of the job. This was the crucial moment, when his future would be determined. There was still hope. Seeing the form of the two, Dynas and Gaston also stood up, making expressions of readiness and determination. And seeing the four stand up with the fighting spirit of steel, Baden Kaitos made a satisfied expression.
How nice, so nice, very nice. Possibly it is nice. Isn't it nice? Perhaps it's nice because it is probably nice. Gluttonous drinking, gluttony. All of you are worthy of our dinner table. Even if it's only among the starters, we'll elevate you to first class, Gaston. Moreover, we'll perfectly savor Felt and Dynas.
Clasping his hands, Baden Kaitos awarded the tree with an unpleasant evaluation. Afterwards, Baden Kaitos, with the same look in his eyes, glared towards Otto, inclining his neck. The blasphemer commenced to give his comment on Otto with the same flow, and contrary to expectations, he made a dissatisfied expression.
Seems intelligent, bad at giving up, seemingly mellow Oni-san. But even then,
What are you? Oh no.
Saying that much, Otto understood the reason for Baden Kaitos' dissatisfaction. As if admiring, Baden Kaitos had tenderly voiced the names of Felt and the others. His unique trait of eating names, and the content of his speech made him realize it. Baden Kaitos could not eat the name of an opponent whose name he did not know. Henceforth, Gluttony could not eat the name of Otto, whose name had not been mentioned here even once. His dissatisfaction was due to that.
I have a request for all three of you. Please, absolutely do not call my name.
If his name were not mentioned, then at the very least Baden Kaitos' goal would not be achieved. Or, in fact, the number of casualties at the hands of Baden Kaitos till now may have been his way to try and know his name. Him allowing Otto and the others such free discussion may have been him waiting for them to call each other's names, and henceforth, prepare for his meal.
My bad, Ni-chan.
Hearing Otto's remarks once he had reasoned, Felt spoke with a somewhat apologetic tone. She made an awkward expression, something which had not been witnessed by anyone in the situation yet.
I don't know Ni-chan's name in the first place.
Sorry, Internal Affairs Headmistress Dono. Your position aside, your name has slipped my mind.
Yes. Indeed. It's not as if I'm particularly close to everyone, and neither do I have any major personality.
God damn it!
Of course, Gaston too made an expression suggesting his own ignorance, and shrugged his shoulders. With relief made of both happiness and sadness, at the very least, his fright of his name being revealed to Baden Kaitos had been diminished immensely. That alone was unmistakable.
Dynas aside, aren't you two just covering for Oni-san? If that isn't so, then well, it seems asking it out would become quite a bother.
giving up for today and falling back is also something you can do, you know? Come sometime in the future, one day again, I suppose so. By that time, we can also prepare to give you a warm welcome with Reinhardt's presence.
Turning away in front of a feast? Don't make us do something so outrageous! Until our belly is satisfied, we will not go back! That makes Lois angry!
Of course, Bitten Kaitos could not be convinced. The battle could not be terminated.
Gaston, absolutely don't let go next time.
Just 'cause I don't get hurt, using me however you like.
I'll go with you next time for sure.
Gaston, who tried to state his discontentment for the order, widened his eyes hearing Felt's words. He then proceeded to laugh rudely and roughly rubbed Felt's head and disheveled her hair.
Stop joking around. If that geezer gets to know that I made Master push herself, who knows what he'll do to me?
Don't touch my head. The only one who can do that is Romji.
That's why I'm doing it.
Felt snorted through her nose. With her hair disheveled and standing next to her was Gaston. Next to him was Dynas wielding his 2 short swords. And Otto counted the number of magic stones in his sleeves. 3 in his left sleeve, 2 on his right. They must be used carefully.
He touches with his left hand and then eats, is what I think. If you get touched, please think that it's all over.
It's way too difficult, even by just the sound of it. No?
Even one slash at any of his vitals with a sword should be enough. If we can do that, then it's no big deal.
If you say it like that, I agree.
With Felt's statement conveying that she had been convinced, their preparations were complete. Courteously watching their preparations end was Bitten Kaitos. Seeing his politeness, Otto narrowed his eyes, and the blasphemer subsequently laughed.
Isn't it common mannerism to await the finishing of setting up the table? Roy of Bazaar eating aside, we are gourmet! We are particular about meals!
Saying that, Bitten Kaitos respectfully gestured and bowed. That gesture, which seemed to put on airs, also seemed frightfully familiar.
Well then, once again, Sin Archbishop of the Witch Cult, representing gluttony, Lay Button Kaitos! Isn't it common mannerism to return your name when you are given the same?
After everything we've discussed, we'd be idiots to return our names to you, you bastard.
Among warriors, it was commonly obeyed custom to return one's own name upon someone giving their own. However, Bitten Kaitos may have had possibly utilized this method until now, gotten the names out of countless people, and proceeded to subsequently eat them. They had no reason to abide that custom right now. With that being rejected, Gluttony laughed.
That's that! Well then, let's eat!
Signaling his meal, the petty frame leapt ahead as if flying, and shortened the distance in between. The movement had not been seen before. It was like a strong gale flowing by. Bitten Kaitos, who had vanquished the offensive and defensive being put up against him till now by mere handling of his feet and dodging, now actually demonstrated his ability to hunt down his opponents. Otto, a non-combatant, was unable to follow his movement and responded accordingly. The other 3, however, were different.
Don't think you can win in a race against me.
Against Bitten Kaitos, who was racing like wind, only Felt was able to catch up comfortably. The moment she lightly kicked the cobblestone and leapt ahead, she showed mobility as if she was being carried by the wind at once. Surprised by at least that movement, Bitten Kaitos' first slash swept through the air. At that point, Gaston and Dynas commenced their attack at the same time. Dynas' 2 single-edged katanas and the short sword held by Gaston. Both of them clutched onto their respective weapons. Against the attack of the 2, The vulnerable Baten Kaitos opened his legs wide and dropped his stance. With his arms on the ground, Baten Kaitos' body whirled with his legs stretched. The spinning kick swept the legs of the two men and destroyed Dynas' balance. And there,
Whoa!
What?
raising his voice, the fourth player, Otto, grabbed him. By coming there, Otto set himself up perfectly for close combat, and without anticipating this turn of events, Baten Kaitos raised an astonished call, and successfully managed to wrestle with Otto's body. Bind him at this rate. The very next moment he thought that, forceful pain assailed upon Otto's gut. Baten Kaitos' left fist pierced in, and sent Otto's body rolling.
At the right place, with the menu for your strong flavors and blandness available. We must absolutely find out about the proper place for that Oni-san. Later we'll properly partner you.
When Baten Kaitos blurted that out, the two, whose stance it had collapsed, moved. Dynas carried the tumbling Otto in his arms, and the one protecting the two was Gaston. Baten Kaitos tilted his neck at the battle formation and looked down upon what had come upon his tattered clothes. At the point where he had wrestled with Otto, 2 magic stones were dangling.
Well.
His movements for absconding were slow. The very next moment after Baten Kaitos had noticed the magic stones, they both exploded immensely. It was the collective of a fire magic stone and a water magic stone. The red and yellow light and the blue and white light proliferated, and Baten Kaitos' body was enveloped in the light, and a shockwave released. Receiving the light from a close distance, Otto also was subjected to harm, though Gaston, who was acting as a wall, shielded the majority of it. Its impact could still be felt upon Otto's skin. His skin scorched to the point of freezing, and chilled to the point of burning. Once the shockwave came to a halt, the second hypocenter was a truly terrible sight to witness. The cobblestone had been torn off, the soil underneath had been exposed for all to see, and scorched fragments of stone had been scattered across.
Oh, that's so cruel! Our only good dress got spoiled!
And, once again, Baten Kaitos had placed himself at the point away from the hypocenter. However, it seemed that this time at least, he was not undamaged. The youth's long hair had suffered the attack heaped upon themselves as an aftermath of the blast, and he had a somewhat sullen voice. It seemed the youth had unmistakably gotten caught up in the hypocenter. He had lost the rag that covered his entire body till now, and the skin beneath was now unconcealed. Blurting that out thoughtlessly and reflexively was Otto. Gaston and Dynas were also speechless, grimacing while witnessing the same. The newly exposed skin of the young boy was covered with wounds and scars. Scars of a whip, scars of a hot iron, scars carved by an edged tool, scars inflicted by a rough surface, scars of the skin being gouged out, scars of a beast's fangs, scars of repeated hits that had turned the skin bluish black. Scars of an innumerable amount. The youth who wore rags, now wearing only a waistcoat, turned around with his wounded body, and seeing Otto and the others grimace at him, he made a displeased face.
Forcibly taking away a child's clothes and reacting like that is quite hurtful! Adults like all this, don't they?
I don't know about the adults you're close to, but normally they don't.
So you'll be all compassionate again? Changing your heart and attitude like this, it's because of things like that we can't trust people!
Spreading his arms as if showing his body covered with wounds, Baten Kaitos yelled that. Otto made a wry face at his words, and Dynas made a disgusted expression. Only the two of Felt and Gaston had no alteration in their expressions. They gazed at the frowning Otto and sighed.
Hey, don't go about thinking strange things. Those things can be anywhere. They're just not on mine or your body, but can be anywhere.
Gripping to the package in her hands, confessed felt. Her eyes did not have even a fraction of compassion. Of course, Otto knew that their opponent was undeserving of that, but it was not as if he were a sin archbishop and insane by birth. At least, that was the impression Baten Kaido's body gave.
Such boring imagination will be fruitless, in fact. You'll end up regretting it, I suppose.
Out of nowhere, echoed a voice that had not been in the open plaza. Everyone, including Baten Kaitos, raised their heads at the sudden happening. Everyone's line of sight turned towards the waterway surrounding this large plaza, and lightly fluttering about midair was a lone young girl, who then descended and stood. In a frilled, spread-out dress with beautiful round eyes and coiled cream hair. Her clearly stinging attitude had become normal now, as she observed the situation with her large, circular eyes. And once her eyes met with Otto's, she sighed, suggesting she did not have a choice.
Subaru alone is sufficient for perverted games and sweetness, I suppose. The only one Betty will help is also just Subaru. This time is a special exception, at maximum, in fact.
Yeah. My apologies for troubling you like this. But thank you so much.
At the young girl's harsh-sounding response, Otto, however, tasted a sigh of relief. So much so that he wanted to lie down in exhaustion. The very existence of this girl was one of Otto's ways to win.
Well then, let's clean up this fuss, and ask Subaru for a hug, I suppose.
Saying this with a listless face, raising her hand was the young girl. No, the spirit. A great spirit among spirits. Natsuki Subaru's contracted spirit. Beatrice finally entered the battle as backup.